How's it going, my comic chat army? We're here with Preston, the
Petterson,
right?
There you go. Yeah.
The creator of the Angel of Sadhill. I've got his little book here. And if y'all come out to Fandom Fest, y'all might have met him. To some of y'all that come out and seen us. But we're about to interview him about his book and a couple other things. Ready to get into it?
That's good.
All right. Could you tell everybody about your comic, Angel of Sadhill?
All right. The comic, The Angel of Sadhill, is an action-packed spiritual thriller, and it takes place in Brazil in one of the most violent ghettos. And in Brazil, the ghettos, we call them favelas. So that favela is called Sadhill. And the angel is somebody that wears a weaponized suit, and he protects over that particular neighborhood. And he faces a couple of corrupt politicians. If you know anything about Brazil, it has a lot of corrupt politicians, and he fights criminals. He fights other gangs, and at the same time trying to maintain his sobriety. So that's so he's walking on a tightrope.
Oh yeah. What gave you the inspiration for the character?
A lot of things. I get my inspiration from movies. I get my inspiration from other comics. This one, I like to tell people it's literally the combination of a comic and a movie. The comic would be Iron Man. It's in the veins of Iron Man, and the movie would be City of God. And it's a movie that takes place in Brazil, and it's very action-packed. It's very quick. Some people say that it outs Goodfellas, with its editing.
Yeah.
So I love that about it. I love how it shows that quick editing, and I was like, man, I want to put that into a comic book, but I want to use the medium of superheroes, to use my message.
Okay.
Yeah.
When is the book coming out?
The book will go into Indiegogo in February 1st, and it's going to stay there all throughout. We're going to try to fund it the whole month, and once we get it funded, we're going to start shipping it out. The first issue is complete, so people don't have to wait for me to finish it.
Okay.
So it's not like you're funding, and then I got to pay my colorist. I pay out of pocket for the colorist in the first issue. So I'm working on the second issue now. Right. So you fund the book, you get the book. So that's like a cool thing about it.
We're going to put a link down in the description to his Indiegogo so y'all can go support him. And we got a little teaser we're going to review probably towards the end of the week when it gets closer to February. So hype up the book a little bit. What was your first project?
My first project was a 4-page. Wait, does that have to be comic or comic related?
Just anything. What was your first?
So my first project, I was still in school, and it was illustrating chapters, like chapter heads for a book called Threads of Jericho. And I was still in school, and I did that, and it's still in Amazon. It's still being sold on Amazon, and my illustrations are there. And then I did a 4-page for like an Autism Awareness, and that was really cool. It's like siblings who have autism. So it's about their struggle, how their life is having somebody who's in the spectrum that has autism. And that was it opened my mind, and it was it's a very sweet story, very emotional, and it kind of opened other doors for other projects. Like somebody would read it and was like, well, I didn't know you could draw this, because I had to go very cartoony with that.
Right.
So that was fun. Yeah.
Well, you did a lot to help people and awareness. I like it.
Yeah.
What was your most memorable project?
Wow. Let's see. That was one. I think that I like that one,
All right.
Because it was just right out of school, and I was still kind of green, and the people were so nice. And they, the people that I work with, Julie, she was so kind with the editing, and I worked with other artists. It was almost like an anthology, and it was like a fun project to do, And of course, you look back and you're like, wow, did I draw like that?
Yeah.
Good God, what was I thinking? But it was a fun one that I look, and out of all my projects, I didn't have any troubles, and it was just like a fun time to draw, and it meant something, So.
Oh yeah. What was your most challenging project?
My most challenging project. They're all pretty challenging, I don't know how many comic book artists you've interviewed.
Just maybe 2 or 3.
Yeah. So I don't know what they say about, but to me, every project has its like, like as I'm on the page and I was like, what was I thinking? All these bricks, like this, this was very challenging, but it was like rewarding because it was my story. So it's like, as I'm sitting there, like 10 hours on the drawing book, I can say, at least it's for me.
Right.
So whenever you step into there to the drawing board, you want to know, will this be worth it? And I think it's, let's see. I did an issue of The Scarlet Knight, and it was issue 2, and I jumped to digitals only because I rough digitally and then I finished traditionally, and this one was digital all throughout the way. So that was like the last challenging thing, but it was fun.
I mean, do you prefer digital or do you prefer pen and paper?
I don't put a separation between the two.
Okay.
I use them both. Like I'll go to Photoshop. First I'll start with really small thumbnails on my notebook, just penciling them in. Just do the whole book that way. I scan that, put them in Photoshop, and then on Photoshop I'll enlarge it to the 11:17 size. And then I'll drop anatomy, perspective, clothing, drapery, everything that needs to look sexy. I go in there and I make it look good, and do all that in the roughs. And it's almost like a finished pencil. And then I print that huge paper and I bring it to my light box and I put the Bristol board on top of that and I just ink right on top of that. So, it's like I use both. I don't limit myself. And I tell people all the time, like, which one do you think is better, digital or whatever? Like, don't limit yourself. If you can use both, man. Like for your advantage.
All right. And can you tell us what makes your book different than others?
What makes my book different than others is me. I'm an individual with my own story. I was born in Brazil. And then I came here, I grew up here. So I have two cultures in me, and I have that story to tell. And I, grew up in church, so I have that story to tell. And I have friends who dealt with alcoholism, with drug addiction. I've sat through like AA meetings and I've seen that. And those friends are like my research.
Right.
So I have that story to tell, so it's a combination of things that hopefully makes the book special and entertaining. That's my biggest thing. It's like I want to entertain you guys. You're holding a piece of paper, so I want you to like not be bored and actually look through the next page. That's
All right. Can you tell us about any projects you have right now that you can talk about?
Let's see. I don't. I do have projects, but I can't talk about them.
All right. Some secret projects coming in the works.
Sorry about that. Let's see. Hold on. I mean,
I'm going to show them a little teaser of this.
Yeah, I have like a couple of commissions that I'm doing.
Check that out.
So this right here is like all digital. Like,
is it?
Yeah.
I've seen some digital comics and I hate the way it looks, but this looks like it's like you really drew it on pen and paper.
That's the thing when you work in both, your style is heavy on both. Like Lee Weeks switched to digital and you don't know. Lee Weeks is like the amazing artist that worked for DC and he does digital right now and you're like, that looks like a pen. It looks like a brush stroke.
That's what it does. That's what it looks like.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I definitely like it. We're definitely going to be reviewing this soon, and maybe we'll pick up the book in February and review that too. What gave you the inspiration to draw this character?
I have a lot. If the look of the character change. When I was in school, in animation class, I just drew like one guy. You know how Space Ghost look? Mm-hmm. He's all white. Yeah. So I thought of that all white and like a leather jacket, you know, and like a hoodie and white faced or whatever. But then it looked like Madman, Mike Allred, Matt. So he had that. Right. So I'm like, that's the thing I was telling you about before the interview. Is like you come up with a look and you're like, this is the way, you know?
Yeah.
And then and then you search you're looking through the web or a comic book and you see where that was implanted in your mind. So you're like, it's my subconscious doing this. So the character's look has evolved throughout the years.
All right.
So what I have now is, okay, so the character is called the Angel of Sadhill. So what I did is I was like, let me Google the masters, what they painted, like paintings of angels. And that's where kind of the inspiration for, the design of the shoulder itself, the like the deltoids and stuff like that, plus some remixes, making it look cool, making it look modern.
Could you tell us who this character is?
That character is Hell Jaguar.
See if you can see it. It looks pretty cool.
Thank you. And yeah, he's like from the military. He has a military background, but he's like a victim of deforestation. So in Brazil, I don't know if you like last year or this year, the beginning of this year or the beginning of last year, the rainforest was burning in Brazil.
Yeah.
And I created this character like a couple of years ago, and I'm like, wow. And his story is directly, from a law that legalized deforestation, and it burned kind of where he lived and burned his village, and he's kind of like a sole survivor with like a grudge against the Brazilian government.
Okay.
So that's who he is.
What was your first comic book that you read?
My first comic book that I read was Spawn.
Really?
Spawn, and that comic book is what set me on the trail that I'm on right now. It was Todd McFarlane. It's looking at that and like connecting to the artwork, not the story itself. I don't really remember the story. I just remember like the drastic change in the anatomy, like the violence, being a teenage boy, I didn't read it when I was younger. I wish I did. I wish I got into some like Joe Kubert, like
right
stuff, some art, but it was Tom McFarlane, it's that beauty, that line. And now you go to school and you learn, he was breaking a lot of laws, like he was breaking a lot of rules with the anatomy, with the stuff like that, but it connected to me, so you learn the rules in school, and now I have to like kind of force myself to learn to break the rules just so I can connect with people,
Yeah.
Picasso was an awesome painter, but it's like his blue period where he started using cubism, and like the Picasso woman, looks terrible, but people are like, it's new, it connects with me. So that's kind of like the challenge that I'm going through right now. It's like, how can I make my art connect in like a very deep emotional level with people?
All right. Is there anything personal related to the character?
Yes. Yes, there is. And it's a story. I was a couple of years ago. There was in Brazil, right in front of a cathedral, there was a kidnapping of some sort. Like a guy was holding a woman hostage with a gun, and there was this church was surrounded. The cathedral was surrounded by police, and the camera would capture this man who walked into frame, and you can Google this. It's in Google. It's called homeless. Just put homeless man Brazil. Homeless man dies in Brazil. So he steps into frame. He puts down whatever he was holding. He's a homeless guy. So everything he has, he puts down on the street. And he has his little cigarette, and he charges this guy with a gun, and he tackles him. Frees the woman. The woman, kind of like falls to they tackle. She stumble off and runs off. And this homeless guy just is fighting the guy with the gun. And the guy's shooting at him, and he's just kind of dodging, and it's amazing. And then the cops, the police officers in Brazil just start shooting both of them down.
Oh, wow.
So they take both of them out. And the homeless guy kind of like falls, and he, on this huge door of the cathedral. It's like, it's drenching with meaning, drenching with like metaphors, and you see his blood, and it's like and that I saw that, and it stayed with me, and I was like,
that's poetic.
Yeah, that's poetic. It's, so the Angel of Sadhill was a completely different story before I saw that video. it was something else. It was like a very comic book, sci-fi or whatever. Once I saw that video, it changed everything for me.
Okay. What artists would you like to work with? Like famous, anybody? Like you said you like Spawn. Would you like to do a collaboration with Todd McFarlane?
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right.
Yeah, because he's kind of like, all those guys like Jim Lee, Todd McFarlane, especially when they left Marvel, they had their own studios that they would just kind of like pull artists in and like, do my background, do my my inking or whatever. Could you imagine, like just like learning from, sitting in the same studio as Jim Lee or Todd McFarlane, just,
That'd be amazing.
So nowadays, let's see, Lee Weeks, man. Lee Weeks is underrated.
All right.
And he's amazing. And I would love to just sit there and like be a fly in the wall maybe, but yeah.
Okay.
I would know what to do,
Yeah.
It was like I'll show my art and just kind of throw it in the river and just like look at his.
Right. Is there any character from the big two that you would like to draw?
Yes. For DC, Batman.
I like that, yeah.
For Marvel, the Silver Surfer.
Oh, nice. I haven't heard anybody say that.
Yeah. I love the chrome. The secrets behind my character, man. That's when you see it and you see the chrome, that's me trying to like be Buscema, trying to be like,
give homage to Silver Surfer.
Yeah.
Right.
So if before I die, I either draw Batman or Silver Surfer, and probably have a kid or something.
Right.
I've done what I was supposed to do with it, in this earth.
All right. What advice would you give to people that wants to try to make their own comic book?
Spend time creating it. And when I say creating it, I mean writing. That's the hardest part.
Right.
Good writing is rewriting, and if I write something, the first thing I write is crap. It's not good. And it took me a while to realize that, now I know. And then I show it to my wife, I show it to a friend, and then I think about it. And in a week or two or in a month, I start editing it. And then in my head, and then I come back and I switch the scenes up, and I take good critique. Creators, a lot of creators that I work with don't,
Right.
they write it, and because it's on a paper and he has words, they think it's a masterpiece.
Right.
So if you say, this kind of doesn't make sense, you need to rearrange this, it's kind of boring, they get offended. So the first thing is, if you're creating a story, creating a comic, take the criticism, know what it is. It's like a writer's room. If it's like good for the story, use it. If it's somebody just kind of like trying to mouth off, whatever, but use it, and watch movies, read comic books. One of the biggest things that helped me edit issue 1 was watching The Incredibles 2. That movie is such a fast pace, but they give you so much information at such a fast pace, and the twist, and I'm like, wow, that's what it should be. And after I watched that like 3 times, I went back into the story and, just switch whatever scenes, broke a scene up, put a scene in the middle, just to make it entertaining,
right.
And the drawing part, you're going to get good as you're going to get better as you do it throughout the year. So nothing about drawing. That's what people say. Yeah, work on your anatomy, make sure a person looks like a person, whatever. But it's the story itself, know what it is, what's the story is about, That's the heaviest load to carry.
All right, well, this is the final question. It says, where can people find your book? You told us Indiegogo, but I've got another. I'm going to change the question out. You said that your character is dealing with sobriety.
Yes.
Like, can you relate to that, or can you touch on that a little bit more?
Yes. And this is where I take real life and inject it right into the comic. So the homeless guy, I searched, his story, and he had a family, and he had like a couple of kids, and he had a son, and like one of his son died in like a shootout.
Oh, wow.
And that kind of sent him into this really dark path in life. And I was like, I have to tell his story, put that into the comic. And and that's where it's come from. Like the character, he has a child who dies, and then plus some other things that happened in his life that kind of made him realize that he wasn't the hero he thought he was. It was kind of like a reality check, and that was too much for him to handle. That was kind of like for too much of a reality check. So he you know, like with alcohol, you have to like numb the pain.
Right.
You know, you have to stay numb, and no matter who you hurt, you know, no matter what you do, you have to numb that pain. So he has a tragedy in his life, and so the book is how do we get from here to where you become a hero? You know, how do you get from this point where you let's say you spent your whole life thinking you're a good person, and then something happens, life happens, you know, and that completely changes your perspective, and you're like, I'm not a good person, I'm a really bad person. So that's how you live your life. You know, you live your life based on every thought is, you know, I'm a piece of poop, you know, like, so how do you get somebody in that mentality to not think that way? How do you change their thinking process? You know, how do you get them into being somebody who you could look up to? And the answer is we're all humans. We all make mistakes.
Right.
So it's okay. You know, like the same person that's good one day will be selfish the next day. The same person that does a really great act also does something bad to their wives or their son. So it's not like it goes beyond good and evil. It's just us as humans, you know.
Right. All right.
Yeah.
Shout out time. Do you have any shout outs?
Shout out to my colorist, Christopher Pugliese, the master, the new master, I call him.
All right.
As of now. My wife, Bercy, she's awesome. She's my helper, and you know, I love her. Shout out to you, man. How long have you been doing this?
About 8 months.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
8 months?
Yep.
What caused you to start this up? Like what?
It all started with a Facebook group, and I was like, well, we got to get, like, I like to get people recognized, like, you know, so people can know more about the people's comics, and that's where the reviews come in.
Awesome. And what you're a comic reader? Yeah. What was the first comic that you read that was like that you really love?
Probably this Iron Man book. I don't remember the exact name. It was just a random issue. I picked it up, and it was just like, yeah, I got to read more.
Connected with you. Iron Man himself, you know, like he's like an alcoholic.
Oh yeah, I met Bob Layton. He got the print of Iron Man Demon in a Bottle. Yeah, trying to get the book. And
I love that concept of indestructible in the outside, but vulnerable in the inside. That's when I, you know.
Right.
I would love to touch that and say something about that.
All right. Are you done with shout outs?
Is that it? Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right, my Comic Chat Army. Later.